Hello everyone, and welcome to Mudlet Creek Garage. Today, we're going to do a little bit of custom fabrication work on my Honda 300. So, this is my first time posting about this, but it's actually my first ATV I ever purchased. I got it for $1,000 off of a family member, and I've been in love ever since. Love my Rzr, but there's no replacement for this little guy. So let me show you what I got. This here doesn't look like much, but it is a 1998 Honda Fourtrax 300. Now, what this machine does have on it, it does have a 4-inch Chaos off-road A-arm setup and a JR Trike Sports 333 high compression piston kit, I should say, cylinder, big bore kit. It has a Ronshaw 54% gear reduction, and I'm turning a set of 28-inch high lifter Outlaw OGs. Now, the fab work for the rear end, that was done by myself. I didn't have anybody build that for me. I'm a pretty crafty person. I know my way around the machine shop. But that being said, you may wonder, why is the front end in pieces? Well, this here is a differential out of a 2015 to 2021 Polaris Rzr 900 or 1000S. So, what's the advantage to this? Well, the big advantage to this is the fact of selectable 4x4 as well as an automatic locker. This machine utilizes the Hilliard overrunning clutch design in the front end, or in the differential. So that way it knows when the tires are spinning and can lock based on the input coming from each axle shaft. So this isn't necessarily an easy job. So I know you Honda guys watching this are gonna want a how-to video, but I'll do my best to show you what I did. So the hardest part's the drive shaft. So I don't have the stub that goes into the transfer case right now as it's out getting machined, but what I'm going to use is I have the Polaris drive shaft out of my Rzr 900. You've all seen in the previous video the S conversion. I upgraded my drive shaft because this one got broken, or the yokes actually got bent when I was replacing the joints. But the idea is to come out of the transfer case with a Honda stub, which then will fit into the ID of the Polaris splines, and I'll be able to fill it weld it solid. Theoretically, this should work. And I'm going to bring you along for the ride. Here's the plan for the front drive shaft. I have the stock Honda front drive shaft out of the transfer case, and I have it machined down to the ID of the splines on the Polaris axle. So what I have done is I have taken the Polaris axle and I have cut the end of it off, and I have made it fit right into here. Now I'm going to groove weld around there, and then I'm going to come in and put a couple good beads on the inside here, and that should be plenty strong. So I have the drive shaft in the machine. It seems to be rolling true, so we're going to weld that up and call it a win. I have the drive shaft all welded up and ready to go. What this is a 2017 Polaris Rzr drive shaft that I cut down and I removed the slip yoke on, and I welded on an adapter to go to a Honda transfer case. This is actually quite easy. The Polaris builds their drive shaft almost like a car. So what it is on the end of each of these yokes, there's a slug that fits inside of the drive shaft. What you got to do is you got to freeze the yoke, and then you have to heat up the drive shaft and they're gonna slide right in. So now we're gonna go put it in the machine and see how it turns. So the drive shaft is fully welded and installed back into the machine. So what I did is I made a mounting plate for the differential to mount to. And this mounting plate uses the factory Honda mounting locations. So what this is, it's a piece of 4-inch channel steel with a majority of the rib cut off, so it's just more of a U shape. Don't worry, the other 2 bolts are coming. And I used a piece of the channel steel to make a L bracket here that comes and bolts to the stock factory mounting position. And on top, I utilized an old winch mounting plate and used the ears to weld to the channel steel, then spacers, and I utilized the factory Honda mounting bolt up top. So this should be plenty strong enough to support the differential. And there is absolutely no movement side to side with it all bolted in there. So next step, we will get some half shafts built and we'll be in business. So now that the diff is properly mounted with the 2 mounting positions, I may add a 3rd at some point, but for right now we're gonna go with those 2. I'm gonna show you how I am going to build the axles. So I'm sure a lot of you guys that have done something like this before are gonna say this is the wrong way to do it, but there's a million ways to skin a cat, so this is how I'm going to do it. So I have the Honda half shaft in down here, and I have the Polaris half shaft in up here. So these are gonna be at full droop currently because of the 4-inch lift, but when I put weight on it, they come down. It'll be fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take both half shafts, get them parallel with each other, and I'm gonna make a mark of where to cut. You can actually see I've already done it on this shaft. I've already done it on this shaft. See my yellow line? And I'm gonna cut just this over here, this side of that. And you gotta remember, you do have some play in your CV joint up here. So, because we're all the way in the down position, you're gonna wanna pull that out a little bit, because as you go down, your CVs are gonna pull apart, and when the suspension comes up, they're gonna push together. Not that there's much suspension travel on a Honda 300. So I'll get that cut and we'll be back. So I have the Polaris differential in the machine, have the first drive shaft all mocked up. I did have to move my shock mount, and I did lose a little bit of lift, or probably somewhere near 3.5, and I believe I'm gonna have to get a longer bolt for that. But the 1/2 inch of lift is nothing compared to the advantage this is going to give me over the stock Honda full-time 4-wheel drive differential. Now, as you've seen, there is a little bit of run out in this, probably close to a 1/16 of an inch. Is there a better way to do it? Yes. So the proper way to do this would be to have a lathe and mill a center on this shaft and mill a recess in this shaft so they slide together, and that way you can keep them concentric. But unfortunately, I don't have access to that kind of machinery, so we're gonna have to deal with that 1/16 or so that she has a run out in there. And don't worry, I'm gonna do more than just butt weld these together. There's gonna be a sleeve on the outside that you're gonna see here soon. So for the Rzr Diff swap, I had to do a couple modifications to the differential. This here is the factory Polaris vent. Here I had to drill a drain port, and I tapped it to 1/8 NPT in the top of the the top of the differential, because it actually has to mount upside down in the machine to get the proper spin. So that being said, I plugged the factory vent, drilled a drain, and I added the vent on the back side here. I wish I could have added this up higher, but unfortunately, because how it sits in the machine, I couldn't run this 1/8 inch nipple off the top. So that'll do. It might push a little fluid, but this is a snorkeled bike, so it's going to be all the way on top, and it'll never push all the way up and out. So those are the modifications I did to the diff. It still fills through the factory fill port, but you do have to be mindful that you're not going to fill it to the base of the port anymore. You have to put the prescribed amount of oil into the differential. All right, so the front diff mount is all fabricated and getting painted before it goes into the bike. As you've seen before, just a piece of C-channel with a leg on the front and 2 tabs on the top to bolt it in. That should be plenty sufficient to hold the differential into the machine, because in a Polaris side-by-side, it's only held in by a piece of 1/16 inch plate that runs across the bottom. And that makes 100 plus horsepower, and the Honda 300 with the Greg Jr. big bore kit should make somewhere around 30-ish, I hope, on a good day. So everyone, at this point, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up. In front of me, I have the bike all torn down. I'm gonna go through and I'm going to clean the ugliness I created up here on the rear diff mount up, and I'm gonna add some gusseting in here, and then I'm gonna put a stiffener back in here where I cut the factory skid plate out to fit the differential in. So I'm gonna clean that up, get this all painted, and next video, we're gonna work on final assembly and hopefully put the wiring together. So until next time, thank you for watching Mudlick Creek Garage.